Welcome to our LBGTQIA Improving Identity Awareness in Schools, Colleges, and Universities. My name is Susu Stewart, the chair of the LBGTQ Advisory Commission for Mayor Baraka, and I have the privilege to have a wonderful panel and guests in this semicircle. So I'm going to pass the mic, and you all introduce yourselves and what you do.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kalima Poole. I am an adjunct professor at Essex County College, and I am also a licensed professional counselor in the state of New Jersey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Reginald Bledsoe, but I go by Reggie Bledsoe. I am the director of the Essex County Office of LGBTQ Affairs. The uniqueness about this office, as I mentioned previously, it's one of 2 offices in the state and one of 7 throughout the country. And I'm happy to be here to lend my perspective of the lived experience of the LGBTQ community.
Good afternoon. My name is Wileen McDowell, and I have had the pleasure of serving students and families in Newark Board of Education, formerly Newark Public Schools, for over 23 years. 15 of those years have been in a high school setting, and I'm just honored to be here and share out perspectives that have been shared with me by students, by staff, just in terms of ideas for making our schools feel more inclusive and warm and welcoming and validating for my students who are on the spectrum of LGBTQIAAP.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey Ann Lambert. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a school social worker with the Newark Board of Education. I'm just here to provide education and also to support our students and with making schools safe and providing information that's been lending to me from students regarding the experience within school and within the community.
Hi, I'm Layla Jones. I am a senior political science major at Rutgers Newark. There, I am an honors living and learning community scholar, as well as the president of their Shades of Love group, which is our LGBTQ plus group, student org, as well as a tutor at the Abbott Leadership Institute, as well as their assistant program coordinator. So that's what I do.
Well, hello, my name is LaTanya White. I am the supervisor of elementary and middle school counselors at the Newark Board of Education. I am also a licensed professional counselor in the state of New Jersey, and here to support this work and be able to learn and disseminate information to our students.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. And we're going to do a quick room change, so if you can pause that, and let's, so we want them to feel included, okay? So we'll keep the panel here, and we'll just switch chairs. And actually got you ladies and gentlemen and everyone to come closer. The reason why we need you to come closer is for the audio's sake, so just roll your chairs up. You can make a front row here. You can scoop that way as well. And this is our panel right here. Vanna White. No, Kiki Shepherd. And once again, my name is Susu Stewart, the chair of the LGBTQ concerns for Mayor. Come closer, right? Because then they're gonna say, "Oh, we didn't hear the question." Like for real, like come closer. I'm sorry, we kind of like constrained with technology here. So this discussion, as I spoke to Dr. Brown, she wanted us to address concerns you have in the classrooms, you have in the schools, for what your experiences are with the students. And so we'll reverse our structure here, where I would like to start with Q&As, and then they can leave with answers, because everyone has a different perspectives in your different schools and your different offices. So just raise your hand. I'm going to pass you the mic, and you can let us know what school you are or where you work in the district, and ask your question. Okay? Any questions? None? Okay. So I have a question for the panel. How does one respond when a student was bring to the teacher or the adult that they are experiencing homophobic attacks, but too afraid to address it.
I'll start. Again, my name is Stacey Ann Lambert. So we know that a lot of time in the school system, there's not a lot of education regarding being on the spectrum, being able to support kids. I think that the first thing we need to do is provide education to staff. The student that's coming to you regarding the situation is in a very vulnerable space. So of course, providing support for that child, providing that child with a safe haven would be the first thing to do to support that child. And also providing education, but not providing education just to that particular class or just to that particular student, making it a whole school approach. You never want a child to feel isolated. So you make it a whole school approach. We know that each school has a school safety team. And what a school safety team is, a team that looks at trends within the school where we can provide education and support. So if we know this is something that's happening in school because we have students who are brave enough to come and provide us that education, we know that that's a trend. What do we do at trend? We provide education, we provide support system within the school system to be able to support that child. I know that in schools that I've worked in the past is that we provide a safe haven. Maybe if we see a group of kids who are struggling with this particular factor where they're being picked on, we provide a lunch and bunch group where we can talk about the struggles and provide safe haven. We provide education to staff because what we know is that if you know better, hopefully you will do better. So providing that education and also having staff remember, like sometimes we have these unconscious biases. We say stuff that's not appropriate, not because we really want to harm someone, but we don't have the information. So with education, we're hopefully understanding what's happening and providing a safe haven for that individual and others.
With the show of hands, great, thank you, sir. With the show of hands, how many of you are getting this LGBTQ sensitivity training, safe haven training? Thank you very much. Thank you for your honesty.
So
Okay.
Can I build on that?
Sure.
And I think from so I've had the experience of serving on the school board for 3 years, and I think oftentimes what's important is that district and students are aware of who is actually anti-bullying coordinator in your building. So the whole district approach, there is a district-wide coordinator who is responsible for interacting with, the anti-bullying specialists in each school. And oftentimes we see those individuals mostly interacting with the staff. And I think it's important that those experts are actually doing programmatic things in the school with the students to give examples of what does homophobia look like, or what are the different layers of discrimination, because discrimination can be, all forms of discrimination against women, discrimination because you're gay, and things like that. And I think a lot of those things should be definitely highlighted during October, which is Anti-Bullying Month. And as you know, New Jersey, we have some of the strictest bullying laws in the country.
Yes, we do.
And I think it's so important that our students get the opportunity to interact with that individual.
So I have a question on that. So who holds that anti-bullying specialist accountable when the students say, I went to him or her, and it's still occurring?
I can speak to that.
Sure.
Again, my name is Wileen McDowell, and I'm a social worker, and I also happen to be our building's anti-bullying specialist. In our building, we do it, we split the job. So I'm a co-anti-bullying specialist from the social worker piece, but we have an administrator who is also the co-anti-bullying specialist for that whole disciplinary administrative piece. We, again, like you said, we have very strict laws and policies around bullying and things that are identified as bullying. So going back to just this young person who's coming and sharing their experiences, I think it's really, really important that in addition to creating that safe space, sitting and hearing what they're saying and allowing them to share what they need to share. Once that information is received, we've all been trained in terms of how to define bullying, and you're right. It's based on a protected category, and gender and sexual identity and things of that nature fall into one of those categories. I spend a lot of time educating students on that, right? We are fortunate in this district to have what's called a file code, which are specific policies that specifically speak to this piece under that harassment and intimidation and bullying piece, as well as when we're working with transgender youth. or youth that are transitioning. And I think it's really important, and I make it my business to educate young people on what their rights are, because it's not something that would be nice for you to have. You are entitled to be referred to by the gender that you identify with. You are entitled to be referred to by the name that that you prefer to be identified as or be called on. And I've helped students negotiate those spaces. So I agree with everything else that was said, but I have found that educating young people about that is a wonderful, wonderful thing, because even if they're not ready per se to act, they're ready for the support to do so. Yeah.
So, but you still didn't answer my question.
About the accountability piece?
Yeah.
So the accountability piece, so look, when we get information as a anti-bullying specialist or an administrator, if we get information along those lines, we have 24 hours to report it to the parent. Right, 24 hours from within which the time that we've received the complaint, we immediately report it to our administrator so that we can begin to get information and begin the investigation, because we don't know where the investigation is going to take us. Right. Schools have 10 business days to report to the district in writing in regards to the status of our investigation. Right, so in terms of that accountability piece, there's building level accountability built in, there's district level accountability, in as much as schools have to report out to the district within a certain time frame. So if in any event questions arise, whether they come from a parent or another source, on building level and district level, folks are going to be looking to see if we have responded to this complaint in the way that the law and the process is dictated for us to respond to. And I would imagine, I've never been in that position, but there are many pieces in terms of the accountability of following through and ensuring that a student's rights were protected.
Any questions before I jump in? There you go.
So, and how early is that? Because at my school, we have students who as young as in the 4th grade who is coming out, but their parent does not know. The parent does not know. So then you said you have, 24 hours to speak to the parent. She doesn't want anyone to speak to her parent. So then what?
Hold on.
Okay, so then what happens? What do we do?
I think technically, there's a law in place right now, which dictates some level of confidentiality between the educator and the district staff person and that student. My personal approach, I personally believe that you should build that trust with that student first. And I think, in my opinion, there's a gray area where eventually you should bring the parent along, because we're not in the business, and I've never wanted to be in the business of completely blindsiding a parent, because at the end of the day, the child's education is the parent's primary responsibility. And I think that just subtly bringing them along, if it's, putting materials together that suggests that a parent learn a little more about the LGBTQ space. It doesn't specifically have to be related to their child, or even just, as I mentioned previously, programmatic changes through that anti-bullying specialist, to just put something out and say we want to have a discussion. And you'll be surprised what parents actually will show up to say, I want to know a little more about this.
But then you have the other side, and this was going to be my next question. How do you respond to the child's parent, guardian, or whomever the custodian is, when the objection against LGBTQ is in their home due to religion, reasons, or belief?
Yeah.
No, okay, so I was just going to say, and I'll pass it very quickly, because I feel very passionate about this, and just finished the training with my staff. There is a file code, and again, that's one of the policies you can find on the North Board of Education website. Look under General Counsel, which is the legal department, and then they'll have file codes, which is pretty much their online book of policies, and you can research it based on keywords. But in one of the policies, it specifically states that we are to tread with caution. It is our responsibility to explore with the young person what that reaction or response could look like, and the burden is on us to do so, because it could lead to a child being abused, abandoned, kicked out the house. It specifically cites that. So I can't say that there's a black and white answer to your question, but in those shades of gray, at the end of the day, we're supposed to be looking out for the best interest of our young person.
And can I just add one little thing to that, is that we have to be careful that we don't say things to ourselves by saying, well, if I was a parent, I would want to know. Because that's not best practice, and it's not your responsibility to say or to make a judgment as to whether or not you are the carrier of that information, because you would want to know, because then that's a personal preference and you're bringing your personal desires into that particular mix of the relationship, and that's not the way we want to handle it.
Also, just to support you, I'm also an anti-bullying specialist, and as a commissioner, we get these calls from teachers, City Hall, but also about me being a youthologist for the state. When I speak to the youth, it's that kind of like double life that they're living as they are experiencing who and what they are, and also trying to be educated, wanting somebody to love them, understand them, be accepted. And what I'm seeing is that I'm out in school, but I can't be out at home, or vice versa. My mom's accepted me, my family, my grandma, everybody's accepted me, but when I keep telling this teacher to refer to me, my pronouns are she, and you continue to tell me and call me he, because I'm gonna call you what's on your birth certificate. Speak to that.
So I would start off by saying that as a school social worker, my first job is to be a child's advocate, right? And being a child's advocate, I am going to provide information to staff if a child has mentioned to me that, hey, staff is acting a certain way that is violating that child's rights. And as you pertain to staff not using the right pronouns when kids have expressed, I think a lot of times they're not aware that they're engaging in said behavior, and sometimes they're arrogant about the situation, meaning that they don't really care. So if a situation occurs where a child is expressed, then it's a conversation for me to sit down with an administrator and say, hey, this is what's happening, this is the trend. But also remembering that a conversation must be held with our child. I am going to advocate for you. These are the different avenues that I would like to take. Are you okay? These are the possibility of the success or areas that we may struggle in. Are you okay with that? Because I want to make sure at any avenue I take, this child feels safe and secure. Even when talking with the parent, right? You can deliver. I'm also an HIB specialist. You can tell a parent about a child having issues in school or being harassed, or child feel like the child is being bullied, without telling the parent specifically what it is. Hey, this child is being called names. I'm not going to tell you what the names are, and we're going to start an investigation. It should take me about 10 days. After I'm finished, I will give you a written detail regarding what happened. We need to be careful, and we need to make sure that we're protecting these kids at all costs, because after they leave our school at 3:05 or 2, whenever they get out, 2:50, yeah, we don't know what happens, right? So then we equip them with tools. When you go home and this happened, what do you do next?
So Dr. Hu, let me ask you this. How, I want you to address my question of the child, like I said, experiencing now, would you say fourth grade? Fourth grade. Now I'm tapping into noticing and being, tapping into my sexuality, my attractions, what I'm feeling. But then I'm safe at home, but I'm not safe in school. Or I'm safe in school, but I'm not safe at home.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
So and I can appreciate all the discussions that have been taking place. But one thing that I do want to add is that a lot of this stuff is reactionary, right? So one of the most important things is to get into the preventative mode, where we are educating parents, teachers, staff, children ahead of time, letting them know what resources are available to them, coming in with different type of programs and upcoming initiatives where they can get involved. Not only when they have a problem or they're facing something head on, that I know these resources are available. I know who to contact. I know who to go to. I know what my school stands for. I know who my allies are. So it's, excuse me, it's important to have these programs in place before that happens. So if I have a child that's in 4th grade and they don't know who to go to or who to begin to speak to, and they're facing these concerns, I know exactly who to dial. I know exactly where I need to walk into. So I think that is important that, yes, a lot of times when people are boots on the ground, whether it's the student or the faculty or the staff, a lot of times they're engaged in the day-to-day things that are going on, on their agenda. So it's not too often that we get to sit in a back office and say, let me look at all the articles, let me look at what's going on, let me look at what's changed. There's not always that benefit to doing that. How many professional days do you have as a school teacher, right? So I think it's very important that this should be part of the agenda. This should be part of the discussion. This should be happening well before the child even recognizes that there's a problem in some instances. So in my opinion, I believe that preventative is much better than being reactionary. Sometimes we don't have a choice and we're put in that place to react. But when we do it ahead of time and have those discussions and topics, and provide that education, we have much better results.
And we'll get with Dr. Brown and Superintendent and make sure each school has plethora of information. One thing you really killed it head on is when 3 o'clock or 3:05 is over, who do I call when I'm walking down the block or when I got home or I get home? So something you said that triggered me, where one of you said that, hey, we'll call the parent to tell the parent that an investigation is going on for name calling, but what you may not know, then when the child get home, well, who called your name? You're gonna tell me who the child is, and then they go into that whirlwind. Right, and so that's where we get the night calls or the after-school calls, and we step in. So it's us looking at the mental health as well. And I appreciate you mentioning a 4th grader, because folks feel like, oh, they too young to even know what they feel. Oh, they too young to know what they're attracted to. No, they're not. No, they're not. Just like the climax is changing in the world, right? We know that, hey, our bodies, everything is changing along with the climate changing. So never deny a child, I don't care how young or old, that you are not feeling what you're feeling. Who are we to do? We're not God. Who are we to tell you what you feel?
I do want
thank you for that.
to, yeah, I do just want to add one quick thing. Is that when a child discloses to you that they are feeling certain feelings or they're part of the LGBTQI community, I want you to also realize that that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem, right? So I think it's very important to realize that that may not be their presenting problem of why they're coming in to talk to you. There may be something they're disclosing in the process, but oftentimes people get stuck on, okay, you're part of the community now I know you have a problem, I need to fix you. That's not always the case, right? That depression, that anxiety, that feelings of being lonely may come from something outside of that. So I want to be very careful that we don't hear that word or hear that they're disclosing this and we automatically assume that is their key problem to whatever they're facing.
And also too, with what's happening in the community, and just for, like I said, me being a youthologist and talking to you, how many students say to me, well, I said that I was a lesbian or that was my girlfriend because the guy that I like on the basketball team, he didn't pay me no mind, so since this girl paid me some mind, I became her girlfriend. That's real. This is facts.
So, yep.
You know you're not a lesbian. You know you had never had an attraction for the same sex, but you want to boo up because everybody else is booing up. So I'll fall into her arms because she saw me as a boo. So those are some things, just some tools to give you to say, judgment, like Kalima said, we don't want to be too reactive because they are doing what they want to do, how they think is the right, just to fit in.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm glad you said that piece because I know I'm sitting here and reflecting on conversations that I've had with parents. Some parents being very knowledgeable and supportive. Some parents having a lot of questions. And I've gotten into this rhetoric of saying to the parents, you know what, look, if you can remember what it was like to be young, we spend a lot of time just trying to figure things out, figure ourselves out, figure out our relationships with other people, figure out our parents. And to consider this stage of development just in terms of, sexual identity and things of that nature, it's a journey. Right. It's a journey. So I appreciate what you're saying about once, the sexuality piece or the gender identity piece is put out there, not getting fixated on that and that becoming the problem. Because the reality is, I'm just a passenger in this young person's car. I can say, oh, wait a minute, baby, there's a dip in the road. They may have an idea of where the destination is, but at the end of the journey, we may end up in a different destination. So don't get locked into a particular thought. Because I know, like, with some parents, oh, well, this means they'll never get married. You all the way over the, you all the way over there. You know, they just trying to figure it out. For all you know, they may or may not end up at that particular, you know, location. It's our responsibility to be good passengers, you know, put in $5 for the gas, you know, and then point out any dangerous dips. But they're driving, and we got to give them the room to do that and let them know that we're going to be here. We're not going to jump out the car.
And the car gonna break down sometimes, and that's okay.
Can I build on that point, sister, real quick?
Any question on the floor? Okay.
I just want to build on that. So I'm still trying to figure out who the hell I am sometimes. So it's like you said, it's a journey. But to your point, there is foul codes, as you mentioned, and we were very strategic at the board level when I was there. And there's specific policy that talks about gender identity and gender expression, and that policy in itself is not just something that's made up, but it's what the board has set the tone for the district. And oftentimes when we see it, to go back to that PD piece, there's massive professional development going on in early October and early August, and there's professional development going on throughout the year. And I think those are the times where staffers can understand the importance around the policies around gender expression and gender identity. And to be honest, a lot of that, the boardroom is where a lot of that tone is set. And when you have a board that is very conscious of the various populations in our schools, that starts there. And it trickles down onto the superintendent and his experts and his professional staff. But the boardroom is definitely where the tone should be set. And it's so important that we have policymakers and folks who are in positions of power that are reflective of the various communities that we represent.
Any questions on that? I have one. So the question with that, Reggie, is I've been told when I had to address a teacher to support the student about identifying the student as their chosen pronoun, then I got preached to, and it was said, the school can't mandate me to follow the belief of your lifestyle because I wasn't raised that way and I don't have to. And then it got to. All right, hold on.
I had a
That's very
situation like
dangerous.
that I had to speak to, but I'm
No,
like,
that's
oh,
dangerous.
No.
Pause, which then by my approaching, and not in front of the child, not even in the classroom, but because I addressed her, she went harder on the kid. Right? So my advocacy didn't help because of her religious beliefs, and can't nobody in the district and nobody can make me feel different than what I feel. What do we do? How do we find a safe place in that building? Do you say, okay, take the student from this math teacher and change the class? I mean, what do you do?
I mean, in that case, that's first of all, that conversation in itself is disruptive to learning. And I think at the end of the day, we're not in a state where folks are bound by religious freedoms. The law of the lands in New Jersey says that you have to abide by policies that's set in this tone by the district. And that teacher has an oath that they take. You are responsible for serving and protecting all different types of children. So your personal beliefs, first of all, should not be in the classroom. It should not. And your personal beliefs don't belong there. At the end of the day, the classroom is a neutral space. It's an incubator where folks are learning, exploring, expressing, and those attitudes are not conducive or not productive to be in our classrooms. And unfortunately, we do have that and there exists. And I think it's very important that that PD piece, bringing in our external partners like Garden City Quality, PFLAG, Listen. And I think it really, that tone is set by the administrator, the school building administrator. And I hope that folks aren't doing that, and that is weeded out, and that is called out, and it's addressed immediately, and it's reflected negatively in someone's evaluation.
And so that's my question. So now do you say this child needs to be moved from this math class teacher to another math class teacher because of their strong beliefs?
Well,
So, but I want to hear your.
that teacher shouldn't be there.
What I was
Did anybody experience that?
I just want to comment. I am a principal in the district, new to high school, my second year. And so I have a high LGBTQIA community at my school, North School of Fashion and Design. And
Sorry, so.
I think that just that one thing is that like I almost said board member Bledsoe, like Mr. Bledsoe said, that it does start by with the board. There are policies put in place, right? And when you sign on as a principal to do this work, you have a responsibility to set the climate and culture in your building as well, right? So, like, my thing is, as a principal, hold me accountable, right? I can't say that I knew everything about the LGBTQIA community, especially coming into high school, but to lean into students, allow them to be free, right? No, there is no, like, PDA in school, because that's just not what kids should be doing in school, right? But yes, you can hang your flag on your locker, right? We should have town hall meetings led by students and supported by teachers who can build an awareness, right, to what the an ally. I don't have to be in the LGBTQ community to be an ally, and to let you know that this is a place where we do need to build awareness, and that every student deserves to come to a building and feel safe, right? So, you know, there are some teachers in our school who have the LGBTQ flag in the classroom, right? But in the town hall, they discussed what the meaning of each color is. And so, again, it's about building an awareness, right? And so I think that is how you establish, those are aspects of climate and culture. And it's important to everybody's, we talk about this SEL. There's no real social and emotional if you're excluding one population of students, right? So, you know, on June 1st, yep, we all have our pins. And again, I'm not in the LGBTQ community, but I do this work with a duty of care. And how can you say that you really care about everyone if you are not making allowances for, you know, this population? In the same way you're going to go hard for special needs kids or ESL, you have to go hard for everybody. So that's just what I wanted to share.
As a principal, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah.
How would you advise, you know, specialists, advocates to now approach and hold the principal accountable? Good question, right?
Yeah. So, you know, and I don't have all the silver bullet answers, right? I think, like, yeah, it's about learning from 8 to 80. Because I was thinking from the standpoint when you talked about that particular teacher, in my mind, that's a no-no, right? I feel like if I'm not coaching you up in my building, I'm coaching you out. That's it. Like, I'm coaching you up or I'm coaching you out, right? And sometimes you're just not a good fit, right? You might be a good teacher. You might be hella good at imparting knowledge to students. But if you don't fit the climate and culture, the mission and vision of what we're doing here, maybe this is not the place for you. That's it.
Thank you. I'm gonna come to your school. Great.
I want to make sure I'm identifying you by your proper name. Principal, what is your name? Pitts? Okay, Principal Pitts. I just wanted to say this to you. especially as a licensed therapist that's taking a lot of high school students from our state, right? Thank you for holding that space in your school. Because what we don't realize is that climate and culture, everything else we can embed into it. But if you from the top is creating that culture in your school environment where you're providing people with that space to either come on board or exit the train, that's the beginning right there. So although you may not have answered Susu's question specifically like she said, that is the answer. Because you're creating that space for people to not only be safe, but for people to be educated. In addition to that, you answered the second part too when you said, if I can't coach them up, then I need to coach them out. That is the answer. Because if this is not the space for you, and you're not here and you're not on board and you're not fitting into this type of culture to enhance not only the learning, but the safety of our students, then you shouldn't be doing this, right? So thank you for that.
Any question?
Microphone.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Nikifa. I'm new to these spaces, both in life and professionally in conversations like this. Thank you. It sounds like a lot of the space or resources available, and correct me if I'm wrong, are more reactive or protecting on the back end of a student's experience in schools. Are there any sort of proactive or front-end spaces made, whether it's in curriculum, like the Amistad curriculum has for the city of Newark, or in just other ways of making space that isn't school by school based, but is more of a district-wide type of mandate or space making. I'm using the same word a million times, but for students, for LGBTQIA students.
So the district does have Rethink, and Rethink is a social emotional learning program that's supposed to be embedded in the school day. It's provided with a sequence of how the school is supposed to be distributing the information that's being taught. We do have the month of October where we recognize, we talk about harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We talk about schools being safe, and we provide that information to the school community. That's usually done by the social worker or guidance counselor that's within the school. So those are the things that's preventive, that's put in place. And throughout the different months in the school year, there's different social emotional themes that's specifically guided to support the school system. So we do have information that's given out. Is it enough? No, but we're starting that process. I think Rethink's been in place going on 3 years now, and it was a great lift for us because even though we all taught social emotional learning, we didn't have a platform that was given to the entire district, so we were all singing the same song. So that was something new that came about 2 to 3 years ago that's definitely helpful for the school community.
Oh, sure. Oh, no, I was just going to also say that in terms of a district level, we have, in my experience and my understanding, a very robust student club and activities. And the name may look different, depending on the school, but I do know that, for example, my school, we do have the GSA, right? And and there are a number of other but there are also a number of other extracurriculum activities where students who happen to be, LGBTQIA plus are in those spaces and owning particular subjects. So we have Helping Hands, that's community service. But that connection piece, that creating spaces where kids can feel safe enough to interact in their whole selves, and whether their focus be particularly to this topic or some other topic that they have at hand, to welcome them in and have them feel connected versus, feeling isolated and alone.
Would that program fall under what Stacey Ann is talking about?
So, no, Rethink is district level in terms of the SEL platform that we use to disseminate information and lessons and do assessments. But when you were talking about district level, you know, a lot of money goes into these after-school clubs and activities, and at least I know in my building, and I like to believe that's the case in other buildings, a lot of the clubs that come up are clubs that are started by kids. They come to the principal, they come to the administrator, they come to the social worker and say, it's 5 of us, it's 50 of us, and this is what's important to us, and this is what we would like to have as a club. And in my experience, I've seen that when there's enough young people and a willing adult to take it on, it's been embraced. So that there again is opportunities for creating these spaces for kids to just be. You know?
You can pass it, but that has been the challenge, because when we started, when I say we, the commissioner, the Mayor Baraka, when we started the SGL clubs at your school, which was our beta, the problem was, it wasn't the students, it was finding that one adult that didn't think robbery to stay after 3 o'clock to be a part of the program. So that's where the failure came in. So but we're gonna pick that up again, and we're gonna.
On the elementary level, it's ran a little bit different, because the kids are 13, they're 12 and under. On the elementary level, we do a lot of different things where we ask parents to volunteer to head clubs with students, and we have a lot of community partners. I know we partner with different organizations such as Family Connections, Rutgers, that provide additional education, because a lot of times we don't have the adult that's willing to stay, but what we see is that kids in pre-K all the way to 8th grade, their parents are when they're like, I would say 6 and under, parents are a lot more invested. So they'll come after school, they'll join clubs, they'll be a part of PTO or PTA, depending on what you have. So it's a little bit different when you're dealing with the little people.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I wanted to just get back to your question really fast. What I'm saying is, trust me, one is not a plug. So I just want to give information. The second thing is, it's not coming from a district level, but one of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight what you said is, one, when we're doing these different programs, I feel as though it's important not to have it as flavor of the month, right? This should be something that's going on 365 days of the year. Another thing is, I do have a nonprofit organization, which I'm a founder of, and I go out to, right now it's just for high schools. And I just want to tell you the impact that it has. So you know what it is. It's the mental health first aid training that we do, right? So we do it for teenagers, we do it for teachers and staff, and any adult that's serving youth, and we do it for adult to adult. I've had the honor to do it in some of the high schools. I'm doing it for Newark in the next couple of months. And what that does is, and what I've learned and what I've noticed from doing it, is that when I tell you how immediate it shifts the culture of a school, is phenomenal, right? We've stopped the first day of class, we stopped 3 people who were students who were thinking about suicide. Their peer-to-peer friends got in touch with their mothers, because now they had that language, they had that conversation, they knew how to speak about it, and in this program embedded is a component of LGBTQ, right? It teaches you not only about the different terminologies, but it also teaches you how to be an ally and to create a safe space for your peer. In addition to that, part of the prerequisites is that we have parent sessions where we let the parents know what's going to be going on. When I tell you, I do have a private practice. I've had parents reaching out to me since. So I have to find places for their students. So that is one thing about something that goes on all year long, and you're shifting the culture, not only of the school, but also in individual households. So something like programs like that, I have complete faith in. And another thing is saving lives, as we go along, and you can see it in real time. So I just wanted to kind of answer that question. So there are programs out there, and we partner with a lot of the SEL programs in the school. So some of them have become trainers as a result of the impact that they see happening in their schools. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Before we wrap it up,
I made
these that I found.
I want to ask them, because I think that
I'm gonna let you if I'll pass it to you, this may help you with language as well. Also, safe haven in your classroom.
I went fast.
That's a good thing.
So you mentioned the after-school program
Reggie?
regarding.
So I think another example where we could be more proactive instead of reactionary is that New Jersey is actually a state that actually requires and I want to shift gears a little bit, that requires the inclusive curriculum. And I think when that knowledge is being brought into the classrooms, it makes the experience of LGBTQIA students a little better, because your classmate is learning that there's various forms of a family. They're learning about individuals like Bayard Rustin. They're learning about Marsha B. Johnson, and to see all of the great things that these individuals have done in the world, it makes that conversation a little more lighter. And we've seen that, and it's worked in places like California. But right now, where we are today is that education has become very political, and the tone across the country has been very dangerous. And the rhetoric that's flying around the country, and like places like Florida don't say gay bills and things like that. Our teachers and our educators are literally frightened to even talk about anything LGBTQ. And I think when we set the tone as a state and as a district, where we require the review of curriculum and that these things are infused or incorporated, it makes that experience a little lighter for our students.
Thank you everybody for coming, great workshop, and if we can support you in any sense, call the mayor's office and or the board. Thank you.
Thank you.